Well, welcome back to another edition. I have Sarah Carr with me again, and we were unpacking a little bit last time on the financial implications of belonging to a cult, and that would be any cult
Mm,
that where the main theme is control, allegiance to a leader, not
yeah,
questioning the leader. Um, we ended the last one with the one of the commonality of any fundamentalist, whether in any religion, is typically women are secondary, um, and there's there just the rigidity of compliance
yeah,
involved with that.
yeah,
Um, what else comes up, Sarah, with the financial implications? We went through tithing, we went through offerings,
mhm,
we went through expectations on giving and how that is, I mean, to your harm. Uh,
yeah. Kind of.
it's not give what you can, it's give 10%. And then in some cases, 10% more in offerings,
Yeah,
you can or not, because God will bless you.
right. Yeah.
What what other financial issues come to mind?
Do you want to talk about women and how like the gendered roles impacts um, income and financial well-being for families? Should we go there?
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't know what it was like for your experience in fundamentalism, but in ours, women were not expected to get a college degree. We weren't expected to go on and have careers. We were expected to raise babies, have, first of all, get married, have children, and raise babies. And that's what our role was. Good. I think there was also expectation to be a good component, but complementary in managing money. But in my perspective was women didn't manage money. They didn't manage the household budgets. Um, and any kind of income that maybe had been made on the side. I don't know. The Proverbs 31 woman comes to mind a lot. And the Proverbs 31 woman, right, did a lot of things. And in fact, had a little side hustle. And that income had to be brought in, right? And so I think that anytime there even was a little extra income, it wasn't her money. She didn't have autonomy. She didn't have discretion over how to use that in these fundamental cases. It was brought into the household income, and then the husband had ultimate control and authority over how that money was utilized. And I also think, you think through those, just the detriment that can be for women, not just in the case of divorce, but in the case of disability, in the case of a death. What happens when the main breadwinner, right, is no longer available? And then this person doesn't have college education, career experience. They become trapped. And the whole, without, I suppose there's the financial planner part of me that's like, but if you had life insurance or you have disability insurance, you might be okay. But typically not. The average person does not have that for the length of another person's life, right? So that creates a lot of financial harm continually.
My mind's going many different directions. Um, and of course, the counter to that is, well, the man is the head of the household, and he
Mhm.
is to love the wife as Christ loved the church. So there's well, the guy doesn't get off scot free, but to your point, there were not many women that worked outside of the house in in the church that I was raised in.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And can we talk about a little bit of a sensitive subject?
Yeah,
What happens in those scenarios where women don't have the financial means and they're enduring any type of abuse? in the family, right? We would hope that all men, all godly men, would be amazing and would love their wives as Christ loved the church. But the statistics show us that oftentimes there are those men that, don't treat their wives as Christ would the church and are abusive. And the church's stance tends to always be stay in this as long as you can. Let's work it out. Let's counsel this through, et cetera, et cetera. But then there's also the financial component that the wife rarely has the means to leave. And the church is not typically there to save, the wife and the children that are in those scenarios.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely so true. And what came to mind, I was in Jordan not too long ago, and I had dinner at a with a Muslim family. And believe it or not, some of the table talk turned to money with me
Yeah,
there.
of course.
And I asked them about estate planning, and in their estate plan, 1/8 of the state goes to the wife.
1/8.
1/8. The other 7/8 go to the kids, and the males get 2 times
Oh my
of
goodness.
whatever the females get.
Oh my goodness. What happens? I'm like suddenly very afraid for these women. What happens to them? Where
And
do they
I
live? Where
asked
do they go?
her, I said, how do you feel about that? And she says, well, that's fine. I'll be taken care of. And under uh, Islamic law, the
Okay.
sons are to take care of their mother.
Okay.
So there is that little bit of a safety net. And then I asked, well, what happens in the case of divorce?
Hmm.
And uh, they said, well, she gets nothing.
That's what I thought, maybe. Yeah.
And I said, how are you with that? She says, and she was almost laughing. She says, well, that's why it's very important for me to keep my husband.
Wow. Just all the alarms are going off inside of me. Yeah.
Yeah, I was stunned. I was just stunned. And it was just a matter of fact. There was,
Yeah, sure. Because it's that conditioning. I mean, that is what it's been like since forever long. And that's what everybody knows. You don't know anything different. It's like, being raised in the environment I did. I didn't question it. This is just what it is, right? This is the expectation. I never thought twice about it.
exactly. Yeah, it's just how life is. And that's everybody around you believes it and supports it, and you don't want to lose that.
Yeah.
What other issues come up for you when you've been doing planning or working with people that have come from this type of an environment?
Yeah, I think almost always one of the common themes is worthiness and in the sense of inherent worthiness. In so many of these cases, women especially, but also men receive that same message about worthiness. And there are so many ties to what defines one's worthiness within the church. It's, the expectation and the belief that we're all born inherently sinful and in need of a savior. And the only redemption comes through, right, the Jesus' sacrifice. And so that already puts you in that place, which, by the way, I don't know if we've talked about that, is not true to original Christianity. That inherent sense of unworthiness, and it's certainly not prevalent in all church spaces. But it was in mine, and certainly is in a lot of evangelicals in America. And what I see is, even though people have walked away from that belief system, that worthiness inside still is in question and a lot of times. And the church has done, there's layers, right? It's not just you need a savior, but then it's always, are you measuring up to our standards, right? So there's constantly chipping away at worthiness. A man's ability to provide for his family is also equated to moral worthiness. You're standing with God. A wife's ability to keep her family together, to raise good kids, to et cetera, right? All of these measures are also a measure of your worthiness. And so I would say that that's probably one of the themes that comes up so often and in so many ways and has an absolutely immediate effect, right, to someone's financial well-being. Is that sense
That
of
was my
worthiness?
next question. So tie that to finances. How does
Yeah.
that show up?
Yeah, I think, it's that whether they're sabotaging themselves, like, we'll take an example of like a woman finally going to work, right? And internally or externally she's doing all the things, she's going there, she's going to work, but internally there's always the struggle of, I'm not worthy of this, so I'm not asking for the promotion, I'm not going to take this next step, I'm not going to better myself, I'll just do the bare minimum. Same thing with men. I think there's kind of that same thing. I'm not worthy of this, I'm not worthy of asking for more money, for what I'm worth, for what I can do. It's those self-limiting beliefs that ultimately, whether how you show up at work, is going to limit your financial well-being.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, one of the most popular money scripts is I don't deserve money.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Wondering as I'm thinking about this, I wrote down the word guilt.
Ooh,
And I had a lot of guilt. I mean, I was basically asked to leave, which means I wasn't measuring up.
yep.
And in the back of my mind, and others that I've known, is this message that you're going to be punished.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
God is not happy with you.
Yeah,
And that that will extend to financially.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, weren't we even kind of taught that? I mean, I don't know if you saw that, but we still measured everyone's morality and success based on their financial well-being in the church, right? If we saw someone doing well financially, we're like, oh, they're good, they're being blessed by God, right? They are in good moral standing with God. That was our measuring stick majority of the time, no matter how many times we want to talk about the fruits of the spirit. That's not what we were measuring people by. We're measuring people by their status, their income, right?
Yeah, I'm just sitting with that, and I'm remembering that's a real stark separation, and how much those that did well were elevated.
Always.
And I was one of those. And I went into partnership with another brother in the church that also did very well. And that was really underscored by the pastor of how God was blessing us.
Yeah. Yeah.
I so I'm I'm going a direction with that. I was recently asked, I was actually being interviewed, and somebody said, how do you break through the structure, the fundamentalist structure? Because there's an answer for everything,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Really. And how do you break through it? And I'm interested in your thoughts on this. And I said, somewhere there starts to become some cognitive dissonance. And by that, somebody that shouldn't be blessed is being blessed.
Yeah.
Now, there's a scriptural answer for that too. Um, and I said, I think financially, you can explain that away because I think there's a scripture that says,
Are you referring to the rain falls on the just and the
yes, yes,
unjust?
yes, yes, yes. But it's especially bad when the fruits of the Spirit show up in somebody that absolutely should not have any fruits of the Spirit.
Right.
Uh,
Yes.
and that, I remember that for me started at a very low level of a little bit of a short circuit, a little disconnect, like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
They seem more godly. In fact, I can remember me saying this. They seem more godly than a lot of Christians.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
How is your experience with that? I mean, going back to the financial thing that you know, um, I left and God continued to bless me financially.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was blessed more financially after leaving. I had more um,
Yes.
success and financial well-being. I would say financial well-being more after I left my marriage. I mean, I was doing all the things that like I should have been invoking all of God's wrath, based on the principles I was giving. I was divorced. I was working. I was, not living morally as someone would define morality. And yeah, I was succeeding. And actually I felt closer in a spiritual way, felt closer and probably more aligned spiritually than I had before.
That's
Yeah.
really going down the slippery slope.
Oh, it was. I know. I know. And it's funny because when you do that, like, man, we could have a whole podcast on just deconstruction and deconversion and deconditioning, all of those things, right? Because all of these messages will come through, right? Like, and I'll be like, well, now I know at one point in my process, I was thinking, now I'm, that person that can see God in everything. And that was alarming, because that was something you were not allowed to do. You weren't allowed to have the perspective of seeing God in everything. God was in one place only. And as soon as you started doing that, then you took on a humanistic point of view. And yeah, so it was interesting for me to do that. And to your point, I didn't deconstruct some of my beliefs around money until I'd already was pretty far into my process of reevaluating everything.
Yeah, was there any one major thing that shifted you in that way?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, I'll tell you, it was the death of my brother Luke, because up to that point, I was doing all the things, right? I was a submissive, obedient wife, doing all of the things, praying. I spent, so much time in devotion and prayer and meditation and being the optimal good Christian. I don't know that you could get any better of a good Christian wife than what I was doing. I was doing all of the things, right? There was literally, from my perspective, no sin, right? This idea of perfectionism, of being the absolute perfect, 10x everything, being involved in church, donating time, money, all the things, right? There's nothing. And my younger brother had been in a car accident, and we were there in the hospital praying and believing. And I went to the chapel by myself at one point and was like, okay, God, like, I know that I have faith bigger than a mustard seed. And it takes, faith like a mustard seed to move mountains. All I'm asking is that my brother lives through this surgery, that he's okay, right? And I'm like, that's not too much. I know I have enough faith for this. And I prayed and I believed wholeheartedly, right, that he was going to make it through. And instead, he suffered a pulmonary embolism and passed away in surgery. And it was in that moment, really, that I was like, wait, this formula, right? This everything that I have grown up to believe um, just broke. Everything was like, this was supposed to be a miracle. This was supposed to happen. There should be no reason, nothing in my life, right, to that God would deny this for me, right? I fully believe that would be the answer to my prayer, would be him being alive. So yeah, I walked out of that hospital and I was like, I don't know. And that was like the big chunk, right? That big crack that said, whoa, I actually need to rethink everything here. And then it was through that grief process of really redefining and thinking through the the God that I had been given maybe might not be all that there is. Maybe there's something different. Maybe there's more perspective here.
Yeah. That's pretty powerful
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
things are supposed to work and they don't work that way at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm fully aware that so many people also come to faith in a moment of crisis, just like that. Mine was just the opposite.
Yep, totally. Yeah, I'm thinking there's so many things where that crack can happen.
Yeah.
And um, I don't know that it can be manufactured, in dealing with folks in that position. It's just pointless to try and be logical or.
Yeah. Yeah. There isn't. There isn't, I don't think,
I
a
mean,
way to
I
do it.
I guess I will from a financial standpoint, like the couple that I talked about, although I would not consider them uh, uh, in a cult or fundamentalist. I was able to reason with them, and they were
Yeah.
able to say, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's a good point." But
Oh,
in,
wow. That's so impressive. Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever had this. I'm thinking of some folks I've had when it comes to talking about life insurance,
Hmm.
where they will say, "Absolutely not, no life insurance." That is an act of faithlessness.
Oh my gosh. I have not experienced, I've heard of that. Wow.
And number two reason is Christ is coming soon.
Yeah. I would say there's a big majority, I feel like, of my um, family. Now, it could be just generational, they weren't well prepared, but definitely the fact that we lived and breathed that Jesus would come at any moment. And there were so many prophecies, right, that had said that it would happen. I mean, I grew up as a kid thinking, I used to pray nightly, like, Lord, please let me grow up and let me get married and let me have a child before you come. Like, I used to bargain all the time with God to just let me experience a little bit of life right before. But I also know that that prevented a lot of people from saving for retirement.
Exactly. Excellent point.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, I hadn't remembered that, but it's like, no, I don't need a retirement plan.
Jesus is coming. It's going to
He's
be
coming.
here for the next 10 years. You
Yeah.
know?
And the second one would be, well, uh, he will provide.
He'll provide. I know that he will provide script is so detrimental. And if he doesn't provide, and we lived by that. Like, I will say, my parents did not make a lot of, my dad did not make a lot of money as a pastor. It just was a small church, so not a lot of money involved. And he always worked a second job. And my mom didn't work. Um, and part of that was not because she wanted to, but because there was, the expectation that she shouldn't. It's
Right.
certainly not as a pastor's wife. There's other things to be done. And the I completely lost my train of thought there for a minute, Rick.
Um, just talking about saving
Yeah.
and you're not
Oh,
saving.
and like God will provide, right? This message that God will provide, and we live by faith. I mean, I was taught that so much as a child that we live by faith, we live by faith. And people would know in our community that we were in need. And so, like, sometimes food would get dropped off or a check would end up in our mailbox. And every time it was like, see, God does provide. I'd get hand me downs, God provides, and so that was a really big script for me growing up, was to live by faith and what that meant. Yeah.
Yeah, that and there's a lot of examples of that biblically. Um, uh, Saving, well, I don't know, the talents would be
Yep. Yeah.
some type of
Absolutely.
saving or being judicious with funds. But
Yep.
his disciples, you go into a town and you tell people what you need and you live
Yeah.
off of hospitality. And if they don't treat you well, which was probably in many regards, you shake off the dust and go to the
Right.
next. But
Right.
that was a whole different time, completely different culture.
Completely different culture, completely different time. Yeah, not to be applied to, to a capitalist environment. That is not helpful.
Yeah, where money touches everything that we do, and money skills are not learned
Right.
in are not inherited, not
Yeah.
something we know naturally, and that we've
Yeah.
got to acquire.
It does. I think sometimes one of the things my friends and I will talk about as we witnessed family members go through this. If I have my own intermediate family members, I'm not talking about you. We're talking about external family members. But the sense of learned helplessness, right? Of I just have to pray a prayer or believe and God will provide versus actually taking any action towards this co-creation, right? Like there's no meeting God. It kind of reminds me of did you ever, it's a modern day kind of parable of I actually heard this in church, I want to say, but there is a flood happening, and then the man is just like, God will provide, for me, he'll save me. And, someone knocks at the door and it's like, hey, we've got a rescue team leaving. You want to come? Nope, God will take care of me, right? And it continues to escalate. People keep offering to help. He's like, no, God will provide, God will provide. And, he's on the roof of his house at this point, right? And the helicopter is there. Do you want to, can we rescue you? He's like, no, God will provide. And he drowns, right? Like, waiting for God to provide, not seeing God providing in all these ways, not helping himself in those
Yeah, I
situations.
think the version I've heard is that he gets to heaven and he asks God, you know, I kept believing that you'd provide, and you didn't. And he said, "What are you talking about? I sent
I,
all these people. Finally, I sent the helicopter, and you said no to all of them."
yeah, right.
Oh yes. Well, I think we have come to the end of time, and there's more to explore.
Yeah, yeah,
So, Sarah, where can people contact you at? I know
yeah.
you have an online presence.
I do. SarahCarrFinancial.com is my website. And there you'll find my links to my Instagram, Facebook, or you can use the handle at Sarah Carr FP.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Are there any last words that you have for us?
Oh, I love these conversations. Yeah, and I would love to know, honestly, I would love to hear stories too from other folks who have grown up in these kind of conditions and what's impacted them. What are the messages that they're still wrestling with? I would be interested to know.
And maybe we probably out of this is going to come some column or putting together these points, and I'm sure there's others about the financial impact of surviving
Yeah,
from
yeah.
from a. Sarah, thank you so much
Thank you,
for
Ray.
take care.
You too.